I'm Angel Andre Bhalera. I'm studying in Podda International School in class 10. Today we are going to see explanation of class 10 CBSE board. The name of the chapter is A Letter to God. But before watching this video in detail, don't forget to subscribe my channel. So let's start. Explanation of Letter to God. The house, the only house in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. From this height, one could see the river and the field of ripened corn dotted with the flowers that always promised a good harvest. So in this para, we understood that there is a house, only one house in the whole valley, which is on the crest of a low hill. Crest means on the top of the hill. In here, we can see there is only one house in a low hill, only one house. From this height, one could see the rivers and the field of ripened corn. So here we understand there is also a river and a field which produces corn, and it always has a good harvest. The only thing the earth needed was a downpour, or at least a shower. Throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, had done nothing else but see the sky towards the northeast. Here we understand a farmer named Lencho who says he has done nothing but only sees the northeast side of the sky for some rainfall in a hope that clouds will come and he'll have a good rainfall. Now we are really going to get some water, woman. The woman who was preparing supper replied, "Yes, God willing." The older boys who were working in the field while the smaller ones were playing near the house, until the woman called them all, "Come for dinner." Here we see that Lencho tells to his wife that we are really going to get some water. Here he says that he hopes that there will be a lot of rainfall and he'll get a good harvest from his field. The woman, here his wife, replies, "Yes, God willing." He has his children. The older ones are working in the field and the younger ones are playing near the house. Later on, the mother of the children calls them for dinner. It was during the meal that, just as Lencho had predicted, big drops of rain began to fall. As we have seen in the previous paragraph that Lencho hopes for a little rainfall, and that's what happens here. When they were having their meal, exactly at that time, rainfall started to pour down. The northeast, huge mountains of clouds could be seen approaching. As said earlier, from the northeast side of the sky, huge rainfall clouds were approaching towards his field. The air was fresh and sweet. The man went out for no other reason than to have a pleasure of feeling of the rain on his body, and when he returned, he exclaimed, "These aren't raindrops falling from the sky. They are new coins. The big drops are 10 cents. Pieces of the little ones are 5. Here Lencho says that as the rainfall starts pouring down on his field, he went out to have the pleasure of rain water feeling on his body. Here he also exclaims to his family that raindrops aren't only water, they are coins. The big drops are of 10 cents and the small drops are of 5 cents. Here he says this because this shows the importance of water for a farmer's life, how important water is for farmer, and because of this water, his field will get a perfect harvest which he wants, and from this harvest he'll get money. That's the reason he says the raindrops aren't only water drops, those are money for him. With a satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers draped in a curtain of rain. Here Lencho says with a very satisfied expression that the cornfield which he is having started to have flowers on it, and these flowers are now having water from the clouds. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow, and along with the rainfall, very large hailstones began to fall. Here the rainfall started to grow very hard and the wind was blowing too hard too, and all of a sudden very large hailstones are ice drop, are kind of ice which falls from the sky. These truly did resemble a silver coins. The boys, exposing themselves to the rain, ran out to collect the frozen pearls. These hailstones looks like frozen pearls over here. So the boys in those family ran out to collect these pearls. This looks very beautiful. It's really getting bad now, exclaimed the man. I hope it passes quickly. It did not pass quickly. Here, Lencho realized that these hailstones are going to destroy his fields, so he hopes that this hailstones will pass quickly, but it doesn't happen so like that. It did not pass. For an hour, the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. The field was white as if covered with salt. Here, Lencho realizes that everything is going bad, and the hailstorm which stood there for an hour destroys everything. The whole valley, the hillside, his house and his cornfield, everything was covered with hailstone, and it looked like it was covered with salt. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. Here we see, as we have learned in the previous paragraphs, that the cornfield of Lencho was having flowers on it, but soon after the hailstone happens to be there, and when it passes, he realized that all of his cornfield was destroyed. Not a single leaf or a flower was there on the corn. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons, "A plague of locusts will have left more than this." Here, after realizing that his whole cornfield was destroyed, he was filled with sadness. As the hailstorm passed, Lencho stood in the middle of the field and said to his boys that a plague of locusts would have left more than that. This year, we have left with no corn. So he says that now they're having nothing to eat, nothing to sell. They won't be having anything to sell, nor they will have any money. That night was a sorrowful one. All our work for nothing. There is no one who can help us. We'll all go hungry this year. Afterwards, he also says that the hard work which he has done for his field has brought nothing to him. This year, they'll be going hungry. But in the hearts of all who lived in the solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope: help from God. Here, solitary means a lonely house. It is said lonely because it was the only house present in the whole valley. All of the family members were left with nothing but only one hope. The hope was a help from God. Don't be so upset. Even though this seems like a total loss, remember, no one dies of hunger. That's what they say, no one dies of hunger. All through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help of God. Here he says that he doesn't have to be that. Here his wife says to Lencho, don't be so upset. Although it seems like a total loss, remember, no one dies of hunger. Throughout the night, Lencho was only thinking about the only hope he had, the help from God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything, even what is deep inside one's conscience. Here he also says that God, who can see everything, who is present everywhere, and who can understand what a person is feeling, will definitely help Lencho, who has lost his whole field of corn. Lencho was an ox of a man working like an animal in the field, but still he knew how to write. Here, Lencho is described as an ox of a man working like an animal. It is said because Lencho was a very hard-working person who worked all of hard work in his field for a better harvest. And after doing everything, he still knew how to read and write. The following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to the town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. On Sunday, he wrote a letter to someone. That someone was God. He wrote a letter to God and placed it in the mailbox. God, he wrote, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I needed 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes because the hailstorm. And further he wrote. Here in this letter he wrote to God. Here in this letter he wrote to God that if God doesn't help him, he and his whole family will go hungry this year, and he needs money, 100 pesos. He needs money, 100 pesos, in order to sow the field again and to live until the crop comes. And further he wrote to God. At the end he wrote that this letter is for God. On the envelope, put the letter inside, and still trouble went to the town. He went to the town and placed that letter in the mailbox. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it in the mailbox. One of the employees, who was a postman and also helped at the post office, went to his boss laughing heartily and showed him the letter to God. One of the employees, who was a postman, saw Lencho's written letter to God and went laughing heartily and showed this letter to the postmaster. Never in his career as a postman he had known that address. He says that never in his career he has ever seen a letter to the God. The postmaster, a fat, amiable fellow, also broke out laughing. Here amiable means a friendly person. The postmaster, who was fat and a very friendly person, also broke out laughing. But almost immediately he turned serious and, tapping the letter on the desk, commented, "What faith! I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter." Starting up the correspond with God. Here the postmaster also broke out laughing, but immediately he became serious and said that I wish even I had the same faith in the man for the God. So in order not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster came up with an idea. Here postmaster says that he did not want to break the faith of Lencho in God, so he came up with an idea. Answer the letter. But when he opened it, it was evident that to answer it, he needed something more than a goodwill, ink and paper. Here he came up with an idea of answering the letter, but as soon as he opened the letter, he realized he did not only wanted a goodwill but some money too, because Lencho asked money to God. But he stuck to his resolution. He asked for money from his employees. He himself gave part of his salary, and several friends of his were obliged to give something for an act of charity. So as we have seen, Lencho asked money to God, 100 pesos. And here the postman also decided that he is going to help Lencho with the money. He asked money to his employees and also gave part of his salary. Most of his friends also decided to help him as an act of charity and helped him with the money. It was impossible for him to gather together the 100 pesos. So he was able to send the farmer only a little more than half. Here the postmaster collected all the money, but it was impossible for him to gather 100 pesos. So he was only able to gather only more than half pesos. He put the money in an envelope addressed to Lencho, and with it a letter containing only a single sign word as a signature, God. Here the postmaster put all the money in an envelope and addressed this envelope to Lencho, and for the signature he wrote only a single word, God. The following Sunday, Lencho came a bit earlier than usual to ask if there was a letter for him. Here in the following Sunday, Lencho came a bit earlier to the post office and asked the employees that is there any letter for him. It was the postman himself who handed the letter to him, while the postmaster, experiencing a contentment of a man who has performed a good deed, looked from his office. The postman who first saw Lencho's letter to God, he himself gave the envelope with money to Lencho, and the postmaster who performed a good deed was looking at Lencho from his office with a satisfaction face. Lencho showed not the slightest surprise on seeing the money. Such was his confidence. Here, if you have received a letter with money, even you would have been surprised by seeing the money that you actually received. But in this story, Lencho was not surprised at all. But he became angry when he counted the money. God could not have made a mistake, nor he could have denied Lencho's what he requested. So here Lencho became angry instead of getting surprised. As he counted the money, he realized that it was not 100 pesos. So he became angry, and he says that God will have not made any mistake, nor God will have denied his request. Immediately, Lencho went up to the window to ask for paper and ink. On the public writing table, he started to write, with much wrinkling of his brows caused by the effort he had to make to express his ideas. As soon as he counted the money, he went to the window and asked for paper and ink to write one more letter. When he finished, he went to the window to buy a stamp, which he licked and then affixed on the envelope with the blow of his fist. After he finished writing the letter, he went to the window and asked for a stamp, licked it with his fingers and affixed it on the envelope. The moment the letter fell into the mailbox, the postmaster went to open it. It said, "God, of the money that I have asked for, only 70 pesos reached me. Send the rest since I need it very much. But don't send it to me through the mail, because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. Lencho." As soon as the letter fell into the mailbox, the postmaster came and opened it, and it said that God asked for some money and only 70 pesos reached me. Please send me the rest of the money, because he needed it very much. And he also adds up that don't send money from the mail, because these employees were a bunch of crooks. He says this because he thought that these employees would have taken his rest of the money. So he adds that don't send his rest of the money through mail, because these employees are a bunch of crook. Lencho. Okay friends, so this was the explanation of the lesson, A Letter to God. I hope you liked it. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share with your friends, and if you have any suggestions for me, please write in comment box. Bye, have a good day. Thanks for watching this video.